On your path to financial freedom, are you taking the shortcut or are you taking the long way to get there? Nowadays, with the advent of AI, you have the ability to compress time in all facets of your passive income journey.
All right, Stallion, let's talk a little bit about this tool that we built. We named it Wally, affectionately Wally, because Wally is anti-Wall Street, right? Wally is definitely going against the grain and doesn't want to work harder, wants to work smarter, wants to do things faster, doesn't want to take, and listen to 100 different podcast episodes on how to land flip or how infinite banking works. Wants to figure out, how can I get you the content and the information so you can start making decisions and, more importantly, start taking action, right? Because it's implementation is what's going to create financial freedom, not just information, but implementation. And you and I, man, we have done 7 or 8 years now on this podcast, and we have shared every idea. We've learned from so many different experts. And what we decided to do is give all of that information away at just a question mark. Literally just asking Wally a question. If you're watching live on YouTube, you'll see at the bottom right of the screen, it has this little guy. If you just click on him, you can ask him pretty much anything. I love asking him, give me a joke. That's what my son.
Okay.
Tell me a joke, Wally. And he will answer responsively 100 unicorns. That's one of my favorites. And by the way, this was not pre-programmed. Like Wally came up with that on his own.
That is a lie.
And
this is the whole reason that Russ wanted to create a bot, is just for this one purpose, I think. Literally.
Well, I mean, it doesn't know why 100 unicorns is funny, but it's a classic joke. It says that you see inside the Wealth Without Wall Street community representing the magic and whimsy of achieving financial freedom outside the traditional norms.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, it's just so much fun when you want to get into anything about 100 unicorns and Joey's, lack of passive income investment that he made. But more importantly, this tool exists to take ideas that people have.
If you've listened to our show for any length of time, you've heard us talk about infinite banking and how we were able to use that concept to create over $50,000 a month in passive income. But it's just not that easy to figure out, how does this all connect into my own personal system?
Stallion, that's why we created the passive income operating system, bro. It shows you how to turn active income into passive income. It makes all the steps come together. If you would like to get access to it as a podcast listener, we've never given this away in public before, go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/PIOS.
One of the things that, guys, I'd love to start off with, and then maybe get your feedback, is people oftentimes come into the community, or they will come into our website and they don't know what question to ask. And so you can ask Wally, what question should I be asking? And Wally will prompt and give you some starters. Will help you start thinking about what to do. Where should I be building? How should I be considering how to handle my cash flow? What are effective strategies for building passive income, right? These are things that Wally's really good at, like getting you started on. How can I enhance my savings in a more efficient and a more effective way?
Which, by the way, before we get into some of those specific questions, this is a small difference, but it's a game changer, right? If you were to go into Google up until now and ask it that question, it would have nothing to answer, right? It did not have the capacity to feed you information to then ask it. Does that make sense? That's a difference maker in the evolution of information world that we're in. I just want to point that out, because now I think apply it to you in your financial freedom journey. Sometimes you just feel the pressure of not being financially free, but it's overwhelming, right? I don't know where to start. This literally gives you some of the very first questions that you should be asking by just saying, hey, I don't know where to start. I don't know even what to ask you right now. And I can't tell you guys, I don't know if you guys kind of concur with this. I meet people all the time, and I'll have my, I have my passive income shirt on right now. I go to the gym, I go on the beach, wherever I'm at. And people will say, what is that? Right? What is passive income? How do I do that? These are very generic questions, but they're basic enough that people don't even know the first prompt. And that's what I love about this is that it gives you the ability to then say, okay, let me start and then let me dive in. Like for instance, let's say someone says, hey, I've heard you talk about land flipping. And while I want to encourage you to listen to all of our podcasts because it's really good for, our ratings and everything, this will help you to focus in on what are the podcasts that I need to go listen to pertaining to land flipping. It will literally pull up those and you can click through to those and go from there. So you talk about saving time, compressing time. These are the types of tools that are now available to you to help you get to financial freedom faster.
You can also ask a really interesting question like, is Russ better looking than Joey? Is also, or you could ask it, why does a 401k suck as a tool for becoming financially free? It will answer all of these things. And, with the little prompting and, pre-programming, it'll give some really
Is
interesting
this
answers.
thing got a bug? Oh, do I need to take this back to the developer?
All right, guys, I want to go back to the original question was, what should I be asking? And one of the questions it threw out there is, how can I enhance my saving in a more effective way? So let's ask Wally to answer this question for us. And then I would like to get each one of you, Mark and Jamie, take on its response. And what else would you add to that, right? Because this is definitely a start, right? You have to have savings in order to create passive income. You have to be putting money somewhere in order to then use it. So it says to enhance your savings more effectively. And let's explore some key concepts. One is the infinite banking concept. That's leveraging whole life insurance policies as a personal banking system. Through this, you can save and grow your money more efficiently compared to traditional savings accounts. Add a little flair and color to that, Mark. What else would you add that Wally left out when talking about the infinite banking concept as a way to enhance your savings effectively?
The additional that I would add on to that is the infinite banking concept is a concept. It's conceptual. It's a way to think about money. It's a way to think about cash flows. It's a way to think about how those dollars are moving through in our day-to-day that, let's face it, a lot of us take for granted. If we're talking about AI needs a question in order for it to work. There's a lot of questions that we're not asking about how our money is moving around, right? When you swipe a credit card, when your paycheck is deposited in the bank account, there's a lot of questions we're not asking and we're just letting things happen. The infinite banking concept, as illustrated by Nelson Nash in his book, deals with asking some critical questions. How is money moving? Well, let's take some examples. Let's walk through it. And so through that concept, you start to see how money works. And then when Wally mentions, leveraging whole life insurance, yeah, that's a tool to be implemented within this concept. And so that would be the only context I would want to add to Wally there.
Jamie, it also says expense optimization would be important for enhancing your savings more effectively. By closely analyzing and optimizing these expenses, you can redirect more money toward your savings. It isn't necessarily being about being more frugal, but rather being smart with where your money goes. Think of it as a financial aid.
Feng shui. Not my words.
I'm going to ask Wally in a second to give Joey a definition of that. But why or what is a way to be more efficient with expenses? How do you optimize expenses? What are some of the ways that you're coaching people on how to do that specifically?
Yeah, I look through the financial freedom equation is simple, right? And I look through the world almost in that lens of, is money going to help me build passive income or going towards monthly expenses? And I think a lot of people, as we talk about expense optimization, is understanding what an expense is. An expense is when money flows away from you, right? So when I think back to your question about the 401k, a lot of people are putting money into a 401k because they think that that's a great place to put money in store for later in life. But that becomes a monthly expense. Why? Because we have no access or control over it today. We can do nothing with it, right? So when I work with people, one of the things we always work through is just cash flows. Where is money flowing in our world right now and why? Let's have a conversation around that. And are there places where we can either find some gaps or even find excess cash flow that maybe we didn't know was flowing away from us or didn't think about it as an expense? that we can redirect potentially into our control to lead us to quicker financial freedom.
I love that. Joey, so I asked Wally the second question that after we asked it, what should I be asking? It said, what strategies can I use to increase my cash flow? That's important, right? Cash flow is what's left over when I take the expenses from the income I have coming in. And Wally says, well, increase different income streams. Well, no crap, Wally. That's important. But what are some of the ways that you're seeing people, Wally talks about, consider diversifying your income streams, and starts listing different options? How would you, help someone, this is, again, information, but not necessarily implementation of the information. How would you help somebody, kind of go through that and determine what is the right one for them? How do they even know if it's the right one? Are they just choosing what Wally says?
Well, that's what I'd like to point out right here is I don't want to bash Wally by any means, but Wally will not get you to financial freedom. Wally will give you information. It will organize information, which is helping you to save time. But the real transformation comes when you actually have someone walking you through a systematic way to create those cash flows. In fact, just this month, you and I are going to be doing an intensive with some clients, and it's a small group. And what we're going to do is we're going to literally bring people into the room and say, show us your system. Let's go through it line by line. And part of that, and what our coaches do every single day, is they're going to go through your investor DNA. This is how God created you to see the world and what investments line up with that investor DNA. And when you do that, now you can filter through those options that are available so that you start in the right direction. Because this is where people really miss it. They take information, like Wally will spit out, and he says, like rental properties. Well, guess what? How many different ways have we interviewed on our podcast? People are using rental properties to create cash flow streams.
Hundreds.
Literally. I mean, it seems like a simple thing. You think rental property, you think somebody goes in, they have a long-term rental, they pay you every month, and that's it. But there's all sorts of variations. And guess what? If you start down that path and you just do it the one way that you think that everybody else is doing it, you may get burned out. You may never want to invest in another long-term rental again. But if you had considered the fact that short-term rentals or mid-term rentals or student housing or assisted living house, I mean, there's all sorts of different ways. If one of those would have been better suited for you and given you higher cash flow early on, you might be looking at financial freedom very, very shortly. But that's the difference between information and implementation. And so I just want to encourage you, start with a tool like Wally and then get with a coach. You have an opportunity, right? If you're listening to this and you haven't set up your own passive income operating system and you haven't had someone guide you step by step through that process, including what cash flow streams you should be considering, then go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/free call and jump on a call with one of these coaches and get that started today.
There was nothing worse than walking into class when you're in school and the teacher saying, "Pop quiz day." Why? Because you were unprepared. Are you unprepared, though, for financial freedom?
Don't be. Find out how close you are by taking our 30-second quiz at wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/quiz.
One of the things that I was using AI for just the other day is going onto our YouTube and using the YouTube transcription that it already does for you, right? So you can go into YouTube, you can take our podcast that we're going to, that you're listening to right now, and YouTube will actually give you the transcription of it over to the right and allow you to then copy that and paste it into AI. And by doing it, you can say, give me 3 actionable items from this specific podcast that I can start and do based upon my specific scenario. So by using this information, you now can take time, right? Because sometimes you say, hey guys, I love you. I love hearing your stories. And when I'm on the road, I love laughing at you two making fun of each other and the coaches chiming in. The insights are invaluable, but I don't always have 45 minutes to listen to an episode. How can I get to where I'm trying to get to faster? Well, take the information that already exists out there that you can then use and take that transcription and use that to then paste into chat GBT, and by using that that information, get your actionable steps. What were the three most important things shared here? Hey, give me the timestamp at which they were shared, and I can go listen to that specific part at that time. All of these tools then allow AI or our Wally app to help you get to what you want to faster. I mean, one of the things that we use inside our passive income mastermind, we're evaluating deals. So you're talking about deals. We have these 7 questions that we're trying to go through. We're trying to understand the fitness test, the maths test, the character test, the management interview. We're going to try to become better investors, asking these specific questions to the person pitching us a deal. But what it doesn't ask is, does this match my investor DNA? Is this matching my personal goals and objectives, right? Like, you can help you become a better investor, but investor DNA should align to who you are. So you can ask Wally about what is investor DNA, and it'll give you some insight, but it's not until you actually go through and take the investor DNA profile and then dig into it with the coach that you really know what my investor DNA is and what it's not. How should I define my buy box? You can go ask AI, what is a buy box? But it's really hard to get yours because you have to give it the input of who I specifically am. So just so you understand how these things work and don't work, I want you to see this. All right, so let's go back up. We asked Wally to come up with, what questions should I be asking? What avenues are there for creating passive income? I think that's an important one. I think most people want to know, what are different options for me to create passive income? So Stallion Wally's going to throw out some. We've talked about so many on the podcast. It's going to be oh, okay, well, is it real estate investing? Well, that, like you said, there's a bunch of those options. Is it digital ventures? Is it business ownership? How about private lending? I mean, just one of many. We were saying that the investor DNA will help you decide on this, but what else? What other tools do we have that help people, take that information and narrow the path down from maybe multiples down to 1 or 2?
So within our investor DNA, we have the passive income matrix, which is 15 or 16 different strategies that you overlay your personality type, your investor DNA, on top of that, and it will tell you, what are you going to like about those certain passive income streams? What are you going to dislike? Based on your personality type, there's going to be pros and cons. And then lastly, what are the specific resources required for someone to be successful in those arenas? It may be around the amount of capital needed, the amount of time, the amount of skills, like maybe soft skills like sales skills, in order to be successful getting one of these things started. Those are the type of things that you need to give to your arsenal so that you can feel confident when you step into those things. Like, this lines up with me. It's going to give me the end result that I'm looking for to be free as fast as possible.
Jamie, sometimes people come to us, they've been working at a company and just following the typical advice. And that is, I should invest in my company's sponsored qualified plan, 401k. And then they hear you and Mark, on this podcast, and you go, wait a second, I shouldn't be doing that. It's not getting me closer to financial freedom. But sometimes they struggle to explain this back to their friends, right? Like, when the friend says, why do you say a 401k sucks? Well, if you typed in Wally right now, he could give them some feedback. So for the person who's using Wally to explain to their friends at work why they're not investing in the 401k, why it may be sucked as far as helping them get closer to financial freedom, what are some of the things that it's spitting out that would be helpful to the person only listening and not watching?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one for me that Wally spit out was lack of control, right? When I thought about my financial freedom journey and I wanted to build passive income to live a life I wanted to live today, I had lack of control what that money was doing. Not only could I not use it today, I usually had no say in where it would go other than picking a little box on when I wanted to retire or how aggressive I wanted to be. Other than that, that was the only control I had over it. And so, for people who want to control their destiny, control their financial future, that's a big one. That was a big one for me, is just having no control over that process and relying on somebody. I honestly didn't even know, some company that it was just selected by my employer at the time to go control my destiny and financial future. No, thank you. I'm out.
Well, Mark, I'm asking Wally questions. I've never asked it before because I'm just making it up as I go. One of the questions that I think people get whenever they come to us is that they start learning about this thing called infinite banking and using whole life insurance as a place to save money and then start borrowing against it to invest in different projects to create passive income or to pay off debts to reduce monthly expenses, because that's the path to becoming financially free, right? Having more passive income, you have monthly expenses. And they get somebody at work that says, oh, have you not listened to what Dave Ramsey said about whole life insurance? So if they were to ask Wally, why is Dave Ramsey wrong about whole life insurance, and they're not watching, what are some of the things that Wally's giving them as feedback that may be helpful to them as they're not only reaffirming their own reasons as to this being a good idea, but also how to help educate the person that doesn't listen to us on a weekly basis?
I like that the sentence in there says it acts like a financial Swiss Army knife, providing more than just a death benefit. Strategic asset you can leverage for more control and security over your finances. That to me is huge, right? I've related it as a Gerber multi-tool, or you can call it a Leatherman, but it does more things than just one. And I like to approach it this way: if your sole focus is debt freedom, then have at it. But a lot of people think that debt freedom will lead to financial freedom, and to that I would challenge that, saying not necessarily. But I know pretty much everyone who has achieved financial freedom is in a position to make the choice if they would like to also be debt-free.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it the other way around just yet. So I'm willing to be proven wrong. Haven't seen it happen yet. But I think one of the big differences of that argument of are we chasing debt freedom or are we chasing financial freedom? And again, it goes back to asking good questions. What are you really trying to achieve, to figure out, is this the right hammer for you? Because if you're trying to wash windows, a hammer is a horrible tool.
Well, that's a great, interesting point. So one of the mentors that Joey and I have, he did a podcast recently on AI, and he talked about this concept of the echo of greatness. And you could take podcast episodes, just like I said a second ago, and transcribe them and throw them into ChatGPT and ask lots of questions. And one of it could be, what's the framework this person is coming from? Like, is there a common theme in their framework when they do these podcast episodes? What is the thought process that they have? So it's probably pretty close to accurate based upon just listening to Dave Ramsey enough. But if we could take all of his episodes, which are out there, just take some time to copy, and we pasted those right into ChatGPT, and we said, what is Dave Ramsey's ultimate theory on building wealth? I would say reducing debt would be at the very top of the list, right? Like that would be a good generalization of what his theme would be. As compared to if, Joey, we went to Wally and we asked it, what is the path to financial freedom? My guess is Wally's going to answer it. It has something to do with building more passive income than you have monthly expenses.
If it didn't, we're going to have words with our developer. I'm just go ahead and say you ahead of time.
But that's the answer is like, it's a different in mindset, right? Financial freedom is about changing the way that you see. It's helping you not only enhance savings, but it is about building cash flows and creating passive income streams. It's exactly what Wally started to spit out. You define financial freedom by passive income greater than monthly expenses. So because of that, we cannot just focus on reducing debts. Like you said, Mark, debt freedom doesn't equal financial freedom. Why? Because I can't pay off the cost of living. I can pay off the cost of a car, not the gas or the insurance payment. I can pay off
Maintenance,
or the maintenance. Or the, all the things that come with it. I can just pay off what it costs me. But I can't pay off, even if I pay off the cash part of it, I can't pay off the cost of the opportunity of that money that's in the car no longer being able to be used from wherever that account was. I have to become an investor. I can't just lean on the accounts in my employer-sponsored qualified plan to get me there, because that will only get me to at some point, and then I've got to be an investor after the point. If I think of the world in the viewpoint of scarcity, then when I get to retirement, I won't enjoy it. And I think the difference in viewpoint too is that we would see retirement as a bad thing, as he would see it as a good thing. We would see becoming financially free today as compared to postponing it years and years into the future. Well, this is just one of those things where we're obviously pontificating, if you will, on AI, and there are so many different uses for it. But if you're not already using an AI tool and you want to use the content that we're putting out on a weekly basis, I encourage you to go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com and just look down in the bottom right-hand corner and click on Wally and start asking it questions. If that becomes the tool that helps expedite your learning, great. But information is free. Implementation is priceless. So if you haven't already taken the time to figure out how to implement these strategies, go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/free call. And one of our coaches can walk through what would that right next thing look like for you? How do you take this information and start implementing so that 2025 is the year of you taking massive steps to becoming financially free? Coaches, Stallion, thank you so much. Have an amazing day.
This has been the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show to break free of the Wall Street mindset and begin building wealth on your own terms in places you understand so that your wealth will never run dry. See you next episode.